What is going on, YouTube people? Yo, Crazy Comics here. Today, we got a special one. Buckle up. It is a long one. I got an opportunity to sit down and chat with Nat Turner, CEO of Collectors Universe. We hit on a myriad of topics, from declared value to card cleaning to PSA offers and where that could potentially go, and a bunch of other stuff. Buckle up. Like I said, it's a long one, so sit back, relax, take it in chunks. It's just me and Nat talking on the screen, so you don't have to necessarily watch. You could just listen. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the chat with Nat Turner. All right, today we have the pleasure of being joined by Nat Turner, CEO of Collectors Universe. I think I've gotten more requests to interview you in the comment sections than maybe any other guests that I've had on. So I know it's a busy time of year, so thanks for taking some time to join us today.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Great to be here.
So I kind of wanted to start here. You and your team came in early 2021. I think it was end of February of 2021.
February 8th.
You a massive just backlog of cards. When you first walked in and looked around, were you just like, what have we gotten ourselves into? Or like, how do we even attack this animal?
Yeah, we didn't know a lot. It was February 8th. I flew out to California. That I live in New York. I flew out there that week. Forget what day of the week the closing was. But because it was a public company, we didn't have a lot of insight into non-public information. So like we knew that they were getting more cards than they could handle. We didn't know. I knew as a customer because, the turnaround times were creeping up pretty quickly. When we got here, I remember it was like it took 2 minutes to figure out the problem. So they were able to process. We were able to process 22,000 cards a day at the time.
Wow.
And that was the capacity in one office here in California. And if you averaged the daily, we called it demand, but not all of those cards showed up because the people would type them into the online submission center, and some percentage of them would actually get shipped and show up. The demand on the front end was 99,000 cards a day. And they didn't have that reporting, actually. So they only knew their reporting was lagging. It was how many packages and cards were showing up in the office. We call that received. The problem is people ship and then the boxes are open and then people count them. And so it takes like a week or two. At the time, it was like a month. And so they didn't realize that it was 99,000 a day. They thought it was like 30 or 40,000 a day because it was lagging so much. And so we stood up reporting from the online submission center that day. And we were like, we're just curious how many people are typing in cards, how many cards per day on the submission center. And it was 99,000 a day on average. So, that, by the way, that's higher than it even is today by a significant percentage. Well, some days we exceed that, but on average, it was 99,000 a day. And I'll never forget the day before we suspended service on a Monday. It leaked. Some of our former employees leaked some of their dealer buddies that the online submission center was going to be closed come Monday. On Saturday, we got 460,000 cards get submitted.
I assume that's the present day record.
Oh yeah, by far.
I remember
that was the problem.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had the YouTube channel since 2020, and I could do like an easy search on my back end and kind of look at like all the PSA videos I've done, and I sorted it in reverse order, and I had the one of like your group taking over, and then I think like a week later at the very beginning of March, you guys raised prices.
That
leaked out.
Yeah, that was an attempt to slow things down.
Yeah, but I remember that leaked out, and I remember doing a video like 3 days before saying like, I'm pretty sure PSA prices are going to be going up pretty quickly. And I think you guys that's when like the post office was what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so we had there's a few funny anecdotes there. So we had like, when we showed up, it wasn't super clear because like I said, the cards, the avalanche, we called it an app. That was like literally our term for it. We like publicly and everything. The avalanche hadn't really, like it was trembling. And then, a week or two later, you know, the U.S. Postal Service in Orange County called us and they're like, "Hey, we can't manifest these packages. You have to come pick them up." So we like rented school buses with security guards to go to the post office. I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of packages a day. I mean, we get thousands today, but this was like 10x that for like a month. And we had to like, you know, rent storage units to temporarily store packages. I mean, it took us months just to open the mail. Like we didn't even know, because I mean, now we're much more sophisticated. Like we know what's coming, tracking numbers. Like you can print shipping labels from our online submission center, and like we, you know, we can track them through FedEx and like all this cool stuff. Back then, we have barcodes, you know, on the exterior of the package. Like none of that existed. And so it was just like, we don't know what's going to come today. We kind of knew from the online submission center, but like I said, it was never perfect. You know, there was a lot of leakage, and so yeah, it was wild. But the other anecdote I remember was we showed up here and they had, in a panic and a great decision, they had rented um it was like a nursing school or something next door, and they literally hired like a construction company to knock the wall down in like a panic move just to like be able to store boxes in this new office across the hallway. And it was, but by the way, it was a football field. It was like, you know, 100,000 square feet. I mean, I don't think it was actually 100,000, but it was like 50,000 square feet of space just to temporarily store mail. But yeah, the backlog got up to 13 million cards. You know, we shut down on a Monday, but the cards kept coming, you know, because, you know, if you got your submission form in before it shut down, you could keep mailing it for 30 days. And so it kept coming, kept coming. And the avalanche really started, and it got worse. And like I said, it started, people found out that we were closing. So it actually ramped even higher because it leaked. So yeah, it was such a bad, it was a great problem, but it was you know, it was still a huge problem because, you know, we all of a sudden had to tell people, like you just did the math, 13 million cards divided by 22,000 times 5 business days. You know, you could do the math. It was like, I forget the exact number, but it was well over a year, you know? And so we just went laser focused on growing the grading capacity. So
Was the decision that shut down, was that like one of those things where it's the easiest decision to make, but also like, oh my God, we're
it was
actually
out of
gonna shut down
necessity.
server?
I was very worried. I was my call. Like you know, I was not the CEO yet. Joe Orlando was still running it, and you know, he was very nervous about it, as was I. You know, but it was unfortunately the only. It was an important decision, so that's why it came up to me as the chairman at the time. But I was worried. Joe was very worried. He knows our customers at the time better, probably even still to some degree. And, you know, he thought there was going to be a lot of blowback, as did I. But actually what happened, much to our surprise, is most people were like, thank God, you know, like this, I want my cards back. And if you didn't close down, I wasn't going to get my cards back. So there was a lot of support for that decision. There were also a lot of angry people that were, I think, depending on submitting cards for their business. And, you know, we felt sorry to have to do it, but we truly didn't have another option. So
Yeah, and I have to imagine part of that too. Like if you guys, as much as that probably sucked, like I'm sure going through that probably really helped kind of position where you guys are at
oh
today,
yeah.
like with infrastructure and tech and like the things that you had to do to get through that as quickly as
Oh yeah.
possible.
I mean, look, when we do specials, you know, occasionally we do big specials, and you know, submissions will spike, and you know, the culture here is like, we got this. Like, you know, like we've been through way worse, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't love, you know, we hate disappointing people by things taking longer, but you know, we've been hardened by 2021. You know, we've seen the avalanche before. But we're much more resilient now. Our grading team is 5 times bigger, 4 times bigger. Our capacity is 3 to 3.5 times bigger. Our every facet of the company, it's like a snake. You know, to digest a meal, it has to go step by step. You know, grading is one of 12 steps. So you have to have, you know, box opening, receiving, imaging, research, grading, verification 1, verification 2, so on, results, shipping. Like there's a lot of steps, and every step has to keep up with each other. You know, you can't have the meal pass through the, you know, the snake, if you want. It's probably a weird analogy, but that's the best
Yeah.
one I can think of. And, you know, if you have, you know, too big of a receiving backlog, then, you know, the imaging team gets choked. and then if grading slows down, then sealing. I forgot sealing. That's a huge step too. You know, so there's just every step has to keep up with each other, and COVID forced us to grow up really, 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 really fast. We brought in some awesome people, operations experts, who salivated at this opportunity to have this sort of scale, but have that little infrastructure. You know, and it was exciting for them to kind of have like a startup, but with, you know, millions of units to mess with.
Yeah. When I just imagine, I don't know, maybe this is not the case. Like, was there just like a big countdown clock on the wall of like how many items are left in the backlog? Was there like a pizza part? Like, what happened when you guys finally cleared it? Was there like just some,
We
did
had
everyone just like a little mini fist pump at their
it
desk and
was
it was
pretty anticlimactic because we did open again before that those cards technically were completed.
yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, because you guys were doing like a lottery system
we,
thing for
we,
like
we
a
did the
hot
lottery
minute.
thing first, but then
Yeah.
we gradually opened. Like we opened higher service levels and we kind of worked our way down. Because you know, not every grader does every card, right? So like they're specialists, and so like our high end graders, we could open, you know, for like high end vintage, we could technically open them up, and you know, because you know the bulk of the cards in the Avalanche were ultra modern, um, you know, like 2018, 2019 Prism, and Pokemon. Like that was, if you look back at it, that was 60+% probably. Um, but yeah, it was fun to. I don't want to go through it again. But I mean,
I don't
it
think
was
any of us want to go through the
no,
pandemic craziness of just general life ever again. So,
no, not at all.
um, so I mean, you guys obviously you guys got through that and you kind of positioned yourself today. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last, and I've done plenty of videos about this, like you guys have, whether it was intentional or not, you guys have positioned yourself now through all that nonsense and all the things that you've done over the last few years. You guys have kind of really set yourself up as kind of needed by everybody, to lack of a better term. Was that the plan way back then, or was that something that just kind of like, okay, we got through this, we're continuing to gain more market share, how do we kind of spread throughout the hobby, for lack of a better term?
I don't think that was like a. I mean, that's been PSA's and PCGS's. I think approach, you know, to be agnostic to just be a tools provider, you know, to picks and shovels rating agency, basically, you know, to be the in between neutral third party between, you know, at the time dealers and collectors, and now, you know, all sorts of different companies, auction houses, etc. You know what, and our business development corporate team deserves a lot of credit. Like, you know, a year or two in, I think we started to realize, oh, like, you know, there's a lot of new enterprise style companies. Like cards is not this, you know, like when I grew up in cards, I'm sure you too, it's like, you know, the local card shops and maybe some retail outlets. Like that was kind of it. And then eBay, of course. But now all of a sudden you had live streaming, you had repacking, you had tons of new auction houses, you had like real innovation was happening. ComC was much bigger. And so we had these partnerships that were developed. Fanatics wasn't, you know, like these are like real big developments. And so we started building these partnerships. And that was a intentional thing. Like basically no exclusivity, um, you know, build APIs that people can tap into. So for example, with Whatnot, you know, if you're a breaker and one of your customers hits a huge card, have that card come directly to us for grading. So it doesn't have to be shipped unnecessarily. Like if the person wants it to be graded by us anyway, great. But you know, if there's multiple shipping legs in between, let's cut those out. All right, great. Let's do that with Loop as well. Let's do that with Fanatics Live. Let's do that with whoever else. You know, that's kind of the approach. We had I would argue, a misstep, you know, doing an integration only with Golden for selling through our vault for a time, and we corrected that. Most people, I love Golden, but you know, if you polled our customers at PSA, they wanted to sell on eBay, not Golden. High-end customers wanted to sell on Golden, but 99% of the cards we grade are not considered, you know, high-end. So, you know, we corrected that mistake. I wouldn't, you know, mistake, you know, but whatever you want to call it, we improved the experience. But that's one. We went back to kind of a more neutral place there. But yeah, I mean, I'd say since PSA was founded in the early '90s, I mean, it's been the neutral third party. Be accessible to everybody.
Yeah, you guys definitely feel like the Switzerland of like, you're so the market share that you have, like even if someone is kind of a competitor to you on like some of the side, like you guys have a vaulting service now, like Fanatics has a vaulting service, but even though they still want to partner with you because they kind of
Oh yeah,
they
but we don't
need that
care.
offering to their customer.
You can vault with them. I mean, we don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't care at all. Where yeah.
yeah. That's impressive that you guys have kind of been able to weave your way into all those different areas and have those companies still circle back to be like, yeah, we still need to partner with them, even though they might be a little bit of competition.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, look, the way we approach it, like we're maniacally focused on one thing, and that is our grading expertise, reputation. And we're in the opinion business. Our opinion needs to be trusted, um, and the premium that people apply to that reputation needs to be justified. That's all. I mean, that's you know, yeah, we're doing all these things like eBay and vaulting, blah blah blah. Yes, great, but 90 plus. If you look at where our resources go internally, I mentioned this earlier. Our grading team has grown more than our capacity has grown. The reason is we've asked our graders to be more specialized. Don't grade as fast. We grade the item more times than before. We have way more content. If a certain card has a known history of fakes, we have images, we have automated AI to detect fake serial numbers. We've got all this stuff that slows us down but makes our reputation stronger. And I think that's what's happening. Is the companies that have raw cards in their possession. Customers want the best opinion, and so we're focused on that more than anything.
you kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, and we'll talk about some of the specific things, but it feels like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like your guys' theme for a lot of this year was reducing friction and adding liquidity. Like across, you guys have done various different things to kind of both those. Is that the case? Like, are you guys kind of leaning into this, like, let's make grading as accessible as possible to as many people as possible?
If you look at our resources, it's actually a super minority of our resources have gone to the liquidity stuff. Most of our resources are going to core PSA work, which is improving the infrastructure of PSA to scale it here and internationally while maintaining or improving quality and consistency. Not It's hard to see that, like we don't publish our
Yeah.
roadmap publicly, but like just to be clear, like it's the stuff that has come out, like which I'm super proud of and happy about as a customer, but also as CEO, is the eBay stuff, instant offers, which we can talk about if you want, like all these, the vault, like our team is awesome. Like we've finally gotten past this tech debt life we were living for 2 or 3 years with this like decaying infrastructure that was breaking every day, to where we can actually launch things with pretty small teams. And like for example, the offers thing that came out recently, which I'm super excited about, was 2 engineers. It's just a giant thing. I think it could be huge for customers. And it was 2 engineers and a half of a product manager working on it. So whereas we have like 10 machine learning AI specialists helping us make grading better. So but it's more public, the eBay stuff. But yeah, we do, to answer your question, our customers told us pretty loudly last year that great, you have this vault, but what we really care about is liquidity. And okay, I care about eBay. And so we went head first into developing a strong partnership with eBay, which we're very happy with, and our customers are too, as evidenced by the number of listings and so forth. And we want to keep pushing that further. People, not everybody, but a lot of people who submit cards to PSA are doing so because they intend to sell the card. And so there are people like me, I'm sure you too, that like submit, like these cards on my desk, like I have no intention of selling these. But like I said, like 60+% of the people who submit cards are doing so because they're going to flip them. And so they've asked us for help in doing so. All those shipping legs, it adds cost and time. When a new rookie hits or a new release hits, they want that thing on eBay as quickly as possible. So we tried to answer that call this year. That was one of our efforts. And we've got some other cool things in the works to help that. Like, for example, Buy It Now launches today.
Oh, I
30%.
didn't realize that.
Yeah. So 30% of the users in the vault are going to get, it's going to take about a week to launch. We do a slow roll to make sure, bugs and so forth. But yeah, 30% of the vault users are going to get access to bin Buy It Now listing capability today. That's another, and then offers will follow after that. Bin will just be fixed price. Like, here's, take it or leave it. And then we'll launch offers, and we'll launch counter offers. So we've got a roadmap of, and then the offers thing through PSA. So we've got a whole roadmap of liquidity, stuff that is just trying to help the majority of people who want to sell do so much, much easier.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have instant access to basically all that inventory to kind of leverage that to both the eBay side and also the PSA offer side, because even the cards are already sitting there in-house with you guys.
Yeah.
Why not find a way to kind of bridge that gap between end
Yeah.
user and submitter?
Yeah, and they're not our cards. It's a fire hose of cards every day, and all we're trying to do is give people opportunities. And opportunity to auction, opportunity to list for bin, opportunity to sell right now for some percentage off of card ladder, whatever just, and they're completely optional. You can have the card shipped back to you, you can have it shipped to whichever vault you want, including ours. You can come pick it up, you can whatever you want. It doesn't it doesn't really matter. I mean, we want the functionality, the optionality for everybody. So
Yeah, you mentioned PSA offers, and when that popped up, I don't know, what was that, maybe a week ago, I think, or so, that you guys formally announced it. When I saw that, I was kind of with you. I'm like, okay, this is cool, but my mind was immediately like running 100 different places on kind of like what it could be, what it could turn into.
mm-hmm.
Right now, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically essentially your partner network, which is, I assume, probably people that you work with right now already for like
Mm-hmm.
massive bulk smitters, shops,
Yes, exactly. So
etc.
mm-hmm.
Does that, do we ever get to the point where I can submit
Oh yeah.
offers on a card? Is that, because that was the first place I went, was I can create my own essentially bounty list, or
Yeah, you got it.
like a red flag. I don't know how it would work. Of, oh, someone graded a card that you're looking for. Do you want to submit an offer? Maybe you preset up a number. However, the back end works, but just basically something to say, a card that you were looking for is now available. It exists on the market. Here it is.
Yeah, no, that's the vision. Our vision is this actually started as a hackathon project here, where the simple question was, if you have a grading order and there's 20 cards in it, and the person wants to sell all 20 cards, there's someone out there who wants to buy maybe one or two, 20 different people want to buy each of those cards. Can you just quickly, without shipping, cash is delivered to your Cash App, instantly? That was it. I mean, that was the vision. And, that it's Pandora's box when you think about that. I think you've already gone down that rabbit hole. And it started with, okay, let's just, who buys the most cards? All right. So there's dealers, repackers, there's people, so we started there just because it's easy. We don't have to work with 1,000 people. And we again, they're options. They're, these, right now it's limited to people with vault, with our vault, but it's not available to the grading orders, which was the original hackathon project, but it will be, hopefully soon, available to grading orders. And we have this network of dealers, small, like fewer than 10, and show offers. PSA is not buying the card. We're facilitating the transaction, and we just pluck. If you accept the offer, we pluck the card out of the vault, or the soon to be your grading order. We throw it in a big box and ship them in bulk to whichever dealer the match was made. The vision, of course, is to have a self-service tool where, I'll give you just one example. So the card I want most in life is the John Stockton 97/98 Precious Metal Gems green. Okay. This card does not pop up very often, but the cool part about PSA is that card, when it's submitted, we know it's submitted. We don't know the grade, potentially for weeks, depending on the service level. But you can imagine, I could set up a alert and I could be alerted. You're not, no privacy, it's nothing like, no names, no email, nothing. But I could have a wish list that says, hey, I want this John Stockton card. Also, by the way, Christian Leitner and Robert Pack from the same set. Type in those cards. I could get an alert that says, hey, good news. a Robert Pack PMG green has been submitted, or John Stockton has hit the PSA receiving line. Hasn't been graded. You don't know the grade, but we don't, could be 3 weeks, could be 1 day. Put in an offer and we'll show it to the owner when that off by grade. If it gets a 9, I'll pay this. If it's an 8, I'll pay that. And, you set up a payment type, whatever, or maybe there's a credit limit, and then the grade pops, and maybe the, submitters can opt out. Maybe they don't want, anyone to know that this card was submitted. We'll turn that off, or they don't want to ever see offers, which is fair. But if it's all, if everyone's opted in, that offer would show up. You get your grade reveal, on your phone, the submitter, one card pop today. You have an instant offer for X dollars. You click accept. 5 seconds later, you get a push notification that money's hit your account. And that's the vision. And I think for true collectors, it's going to be really cool. Because, I'm desperately searching for, say, 30 or 40 cards. I would definitely go in there and, maniacally make sure that list of cards is turned on and accurate and up to date, so that in that fire hose of cards at, PSA 60,000 cards every day, if one of those needles in the haystack shows up, 60,000 chances a day, I want that. I want to know, and I want to buy that. I want at least an offer to be put in front of the submitter. So that's the vision.
Yeah, I mean that's a win for every. I don't know who the loser is in that situation, because the submitter gets the option for instant cash.
Yeah, you can turn it down.
Yeah, or maybe they just want the card shipped home.
Fine.
But then on the flip side, the collector, the flipper, whatever it is that wants the card has, a 60,000 card influx every day of potential possibilities that it could be.
We kind of look at it as a card show every day. Like if you go to the National, there's probably 50,000 displayed created cards, I would guess. I mean, basically every day there's a National in our office. And not every card's for sale with a price tag on it, but we know a lot of those cards are for sale, or will be. We see them on eBay, we see them everywhere. And so, we know they're out there. So
would there be some, because I can see this being a concern, especially on, maybe not so much like high grade ultra modern, but like on lower or mid grade vintage or something like that, like not being able to see the card. Would there be a way to potentially see the card before you formally submit the offer? Because
get it in hand.
Not all PSA 3s are equal,
like see an image or get it physically in your hand.
See an image, like to know, like my Jim Brown, like I have 2 Jim Browns, one's really off centered, one's kind of off centered, they're both 3s.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, so the question is, when you're typing in that offer, do you do it ahead of time by grade, or do you wait and see the final view image? Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. We could totally do that. You could basically say, I only want to make an offer, once you see an image. We haven't contemplated that at a cert level. Seeing an image, we could probably figure out how to do that. But this is the thing. It's Pandora's box. Like you go down the rabbit hole. It's like, it's pretty exciting. We have some other ideas there I'll hold back on, but like, there's some really cool things you can do.
And I think I have to imagine set registry people would probably, like, if there's ever any integration in set registry, that just seems like a gold mine for those guys and girls.
That's where this started. Yeah. So the original vision was the matchmaking would be set registry members who have missing lines in their set. So those 20 cards I mentioned, 3 of them happen to be, missing cards for my set. I need 9s. Great. Boom, let's make an offer. Yeah, anyway, that's set registry. It's got a lot of cool, but right now it's only available to the vault. We have like, I think we have like 500 or 600,000 cards in our vault right now. And it grows, significantly every week. And so but it's still small, every 7 days we grade more cards that are in our vault. So, the vault is cool for a swimming, a fishing pond for the offers, but, grading is where really that fire hose is. So, that's, I think a lot of people, when the announcement came out, they were like, well, I don't have cards in the vault, or the cards I have in the vault didn't have any offer. They're kind of disappointed that they didn't have an offer to look at. And that'll change once we actually expand the program to, to grading, have more buyers. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when the announcement came out, I almost kind of like blew past of what needs to be in the vault and this and that because I wasn't concerned about what it is today. Like I said, I immediately went to like the possibilities are
Oh yeah, you're
literally
smart. Yeah.
almost endless on this thing.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah. Well, I have this vision that like, how cool would it be if you could submit an order to PSA and technically get paid to do so? So like imagine if you send 10 cards in and your instant offers total to be greater than the grading fees of those 10 cards. I mean, like we could have customers that they don't like effectively it nets out where they don't even pay us. We're paying them. Like that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Like if you had a public, like essentially a public bounty board that's basically like, I am looking for whatever card from whatever set, a green PMG, but maybe not something necessarily that rare. But I'm looking for a high grade card from 77 tops of like these three obscure
That's interesting.
players.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's out there. And like me
Yes,
is just a guy sitting at home. Wait, I have some of those laying around. This looks pretty clean. Maybe
there
this
you
isn't
go.
that
See,
good.
it keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just like,
Yeah. But the idea of just in general of you could in theory have a customer who had no idea this offer thing even existed, but they get their grades, they accept all the offers, and then their invoice happens to be zeroed out. And in fact, they get a deposit. It's kind of cool. I mean, that's
yeah.
like, for a true collector, it's maybe not that cool because you want to have the cards in your house. But, for someone who's flipping, doesn't get much better than that. So,
I think everyone's got a little bit of both in them these days. I mean, I'm sure there are still some tried and true. Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but I feel like everyone's got a little bit of fun, use the hobby to fund the hobby type mentality, or at least a large majority of people. It
Yeah.
seems like has that kind of.
We have a lot to figure out. Like, we're basing this all on card ladder value, which we believe is the best, comp to use for these cards. But card ladder is amazing. It has some deficiencies on cards that don't have a direct sales comp. There won't be a price, therefore we won't be able to make an offer. So there's some, we've got a bunch of quirks to figure out. But we'll get there.
Yeah. Does this does PSA offers and like this back end? Does this? I mean, it almost sounds like it could just eventually morph into like a PSA marketplace. Is that something that could potentially be on the table, or?
I don't think so. So eBay's our partner. We love the audience and option, for liquidity in general, auctions and buy it now that eBay provides. And I've been a major as a source of my cards. I would say well over half of the cards I acquire every year come through eBay since probably 1999. When I first started my eBay account, I looked the other day. So, it hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten more important to the card community, eBay. I mean,
Yeah.
so we kind of had that experiment with gold, and I don't think people want something else. I really don't. But I mean, there's different, like for high end vintage, like you're not going to send $1 million Mickey Mantle card to eBay. You never will. But for a $100, $200 card, and I love that. And, we tried and there's others trying and like, it's great. Competition is an awesome thing for us as hobbyists that people are trying to keep eBay honest, but we're partnered with them. So,
Yeah. And there's also like a little bit of mixture of like church and state on that of like, is there a conflict of interest of, we have our own marketplace and we're the ones grading the cards that go to that marketplace.
yeah.
And if you want to go down like the YouTube comment rabbit hole of, well, they're grading it, so if it gets a higher grade, that means it'll sell for more, which means they get a higher percentage.
I've heard all that, but I mean,
yeah,
you take that one step further. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll ruin our reputation to make a couple extra bucks in the shrine. It makes no sense. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like as someone that reads a ton of YouTube comments, I think on some of that. I'm like, do you really think, a whatever you guys are, multi-million, billion, whatever it is, company is going to risk everything over making an extra 5% on $1,000 sale versus a $200 sale on a 9 versus a 10, or whatever the case might be? It's just like, I don't know.
No, never will.
Yeah. My one gripe is because I used the direct to eBay and the vaulting stuff actually not that long ago, and it was a very pleasant experience. Shipping
Yeah,
shipping
I know where
charges
you're going.
all stuck.
I know. So our problem right now is our vault's in Delaware and most cards are graded in California. And so we have to get the cards from California to Delaware, and that's where we do all the eBay stuff. We're gonna fix this. We know it's a problem. We hear it all the time. We are shipping the cards. I mean, there is true
Yeah,
cost incurred there. But the solution is don't ship them to Delaware. Like if you know they're going to sell, just keep them in California until they're sold and then ship them from Delaware or
yeah.
some from California, excuse me. That's clearly the plan. We just, we actually talked about it at length this morning in our exec team. So it's probably our biggest gripe, and you're not alone. And yeah, I can't wait to fix that. So
Yeah, and for me, it wasn't even necessarily like I didn't mind paying for the shipping. It was like I'm getting hit full freight here. Like
I know.
can I at least get a discount? Like I'm using your guys' vault. Like
No, I
leave
know.
me
I know.
alone.
That's actually, yeah. No, I get it. I mean, we take insurance. We don't ship in these big giant crates. We're using FedEx just like a normal order, believe it or not. So we've got a lot of optimization to do, and that's top of the list.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned earlier, obviously the deepening ties with eBay. When, or I assume this has to be on a whiteboard somewhere. When will I get to the point that my raw card is there for eBay authenticity guaranteed, and I could just check mark a box and say, "Here's an
Yeah.
extra $50, grade this," or whatever,
Yeah, we're actively working on that with eBay. It's going to happen next year, probably in first half. We call this grading add-on, where you can add on grading to your purchase on eBay. We it's in the weeds, but like basically, we need to if you buy a card on eBay believes, and I completely agree with them, that it's on them to keep their customer updated as to the progress of their PSA order. So it can't just be like a complete handoff. And so we're basically working through the technical specifics of how do we pass back statuses and so forth to eBay, so that when you log into your eBay purchase history and my collection on ebay.com, it says, oh, your card's in grading, your card's been, your card's been received by PSA, that whole thing. So we're definitely getting there, probably Q1, Q2. So I would use the same thing. I get 10 or 15 cards a day raw from eBay that I am going to grade, and I would much rather just click a little button.
Yeah, I mean, for the same thing we talked about before, like it saves on shit. Like, okay, cool. Now I got it shipped to me. Now it's already at PSA. It's coming to me now.
Oh yeah, well for 250 and above, yeah, it's hilarious. Like I see it in our office. Yeah, we see the $250 raw cards come in for AG, and then authenticity guarantee, and it's like we're shipping them out, and I know at least some percentage of those are going to come right back. It's silly, and then they get lost or stolen in the mail. Yeah, it's silly. It's expensive.
Well, and that too, kind of what we talked about earlier with like the PSA offers thing. It's like you could kind of go down this whole other rabbit hole of the speed to market of I could go on eBay, buy a bunch of raw cards, send them straight to you guys for grading, have them graded, and then instantly sell them. And that's like, I don't know, I'm probably turning those cards around maybe 2 to 3 weeks faster than I would like under the traditional method right now of ship it here, ship it there, ship it back to there, ship it back to there, and then ship it again.
So just so you know, like the AG team, like they're actual graders. Like even though we're not grading the card, eBay, it's just a yes, no, is the card real or not? We also check for like scratches and things that are not significantly as described. We didn't hire some random people. Like we literally pulled people out of the grading room. So the point is those same people can grade the card. We're not set up to do it yet because of what I just said with the technical integration with eBay.com. So we'll get there. We're ready for it. Like we could do it. I mean, like I said, the people are already the same people who would grade it are already touching the card. We just have to add in the numerical grade and then the sealing component to it. So
it's always the tech stuff that holds everything up.
I know.
Kind of the other big thing that you guys had this year was the GameStop stuff. And I have to imagine, like, how does something like that come? Like, obviously, GameStop got into cards with the whole, like, they wanted to buy cards back and stuff like that. But how does something like that come together of two? I don't know that you guys are two companies that you would think would be like a match made in heaven per se, but it feels like in the early on it's worked quite well. But how does like something like that come together to even begin?
Yeah, I have to give them credit. I mean, this was their idea. In fact, when I first heard the idea, and our corp dev team, as I mentioned before, they spearheaded this and deserve credit as well. Like, I was like, what? GameStop wants to buy car. I'd been to GameStop many times in my life, but I just couldn't connect the dots initially. I'm embarrassed to admit it. Like, like the great, like to buy graded cards, like that's where it started. And then, but they were so smart about it. Like they knew that they wanted to limit it to graded. They knew they wanted to, which I love, start with PSA, graded only. They knew about card ladder. Like they knew everything. And they came to us, they're like, here's what we want to do. And we're like, all right, like, here are APIs and here's card ladder and have fun. And then, they called us a few weeks later, like, hey, we want to start accepting raw cards for grading. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, you're not a card shop. And then, boy, did we realize, how wrong we were. They're very fast moving. Like the speed at which they got both of those programs out was like Elon Musk style. It was really cool. So
when the buying thing came out, I was like, okay, like I get it, but I don't. When the group submitting thing came out, I like immediately a lot of people were like, I'm not giving my cards to GameStop. You're crazy.
That's what I said too. I said it to them.
But so I remember doing the video on it, and I remember being like, I think this is kind of gonna work. Like we're not the audience for this. Like my audience of the YouTube channel is, and there's actually people that comment all the time that said that they're using it and it's been working great. But generally speaking, I don't know that my audience is the audience that GameStop's going for. I think they're going for that casual audience, and I'm sure I have to imagine you're probably seeing a bulk of TCG coming in from.
Yeah, it's like 90%
that. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. But like I kind of get it. Like I kind of got that part. I'm like, I think this is actually going to work. So I wasn't like super surprised.
Yeah,
when
we were.
I saw like the revenue numbers come out in the GameStop thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I'm not like super surprised that they got that many cards in.
Yeah, no, it's really again, kudos to them for figuring out the operational plan, the marketing plan, the role training, like doing this at like thousands of stores or whatever it is. I mean, it's super impressive. And I should have known because like on Twitter I don't have like a ton of followers like compared to some other like crypto and these stock but like I'd comment on PSA like the instant offers thing, and then 90% of the replies are GameStop people. Like when is this going to launch on GameStop? I'm like, what are you like? I think there's more GameStoppers than card collectors responding to commenting on stuff now. So it just shows you how big of a brand GameStop is, how big their retail presence is. What's that quote? The story of, or I'm gonna butcher it, but their demise was far exaggerated, or whatever the right, like the rhetoric on them for years has has been negative, but if you actually are in this community, like go to one, and again, I hadn't been to one in a few years because I'm not in the gaming world much at all. I'm a card guy, but the community is really alive of people going in those stores, buying cards. So I went to one literally an hour ago here in Orange, Southern California, the town of Orange in Orange County. And there's more Pokemon cards in there than games. Should probably be Card Stop instead of GameStop.
That'll be their rebrand when they become National Card Stop or National Card Shop.
I just think it's really impressive how they've pivoted, or not pivoted, wrong word. They've adapted and really integrated trading card games, especially into their brands, but also their stores.
Yeah, they were kind of forced to, because it's not like physical video game media is the future. Everyone just wants to go on their PlayStation or their Xbox and click buy it now, and it just downloads. Like there's not really a need to walk into a physical store and walk out with a physical disc anymore. So
I don't know
how to do something.
I don't know gaming at all. I'm so naive there, but you're probably right.
Well, now you're going to be an expert now.
No, I'm the card guy.
But I mean, from your guys' perspective,
what I don't know. So. What's that?
I said from your guys' perspective too, that like instantly gives, like, I don't know how many I remember talking about it in the video. I remember off the top of my head. Like that just gives you instantly like hundreds of physical drop off locations,
Yeah.
like just at the the flick of a press release.
Yeah. So the two things we hear this a lot. People really don't want to ship their cards. Not everybody, but a lot of people. That's what's holding them back from submitting. People think that's the only reason that they don't submit through directly. The other reason is that a lot of people, like over half, we see this with our local drop off events when we go to an LCS, and they just have like 2 or 3 questions they want to ask about grading. Like, is this card this card? Is this worth grading? What's this worth if it gets a 9? How does it work? And the cool part about GameStop is that they have a person behind a counter. LCSs have the same thing. The problem with LCSs is like I can only name 2 of them that have more than one location. And so there's no scale to any of them. And we've desperately been adding new dealers, new shops over the years. But yeah, to your point, the cool part of GameStop is they have a lot of locations. But what's even cooler is that they have humans in there that are passionate, who are working there, who are happy to answer questions about the Pokemon cards you just walked in with. They may not know everything about it, but at least they're a friendly face that can, help you. And like I said before, GameStop's done a great job of training their employees across the country to answer these sorts of questions, and that's a big part of what holds people back from grading. The cards are out there. It's not an issue of that. It's a person walks in with their binder and they're like, here's my son's card collection from 1999, Pokemon. I want to submit these and sell them. Which one should I? Like that, we see that a lot.
Yeah, sometimes I think we're so in the thick of it of like, oh, well, submitting the PSA is easy. Like I just log on, I fill out the thing,
Really
I
hard.
send the cards, and it's good. Like it's the simplest thing in the world because we do it all the time.
You know it.
I think people lose perspective of, okay, little Timmy wants to grade his Pikachu that he just opened, and the mom and dad have no idea what PSA might even is.
Oh, it's really hard. I mean, we say all the time, our customers are experts. That's our biggest strength and weakness. Like the people who submit to us know what they're doing. The weakness is that it's really intimidating when you don't know what you're doing. Like pull up our online submission center, declared value. Like what are these? Like which we just removed, thankfully. But like
that's max value now.
Yeah, max insured value. Yeah, there's so many little things like that turn people off. Like we have the I can't tell you the exact numbers, but hundreds of thousands of people sign up for PSA for an account every year, make it to the online submission center, and then don't submit. So it's they have intent. They even type in cards, but they don't know. They get overwhelmed, and some percentage of them are going to go to our dealers, which we love. Just go to places like GameStop, wait for our local submission events, drop off events, wait till the national, wait till whatever show. But I would argue a majority of them just keep the cards and give up. And so we're trying to like bridge those things for them.
Yeah. You mentioned the max value / declared value change. We could talk about that real quick. So was that just let's just kind of make things less confusing decision? Yeah. Is that kind of what drove that?
Yeah, it's caused some consternation around the shipping because the insurance kind of gets jacked up. But we added a little feature where you can edit it now, so it defaults to the max of the service level, which I think most people are going to just accept and do because that's you like being covered. It doesn't. Funny enough, when you run the math, most people on average are actually going to pay slightly less for shipping than before. But it's there's a lot of detail into that. Some people are going to pay more, some people are going to pay less. And so we tried to thread that needle with how we calculate shipping and insurance based on this change. But yeah, I mean, it was when we did focus groups and people, hit the online submission center, like I said, especially newbies who were really trying to help onboard into the hobby. Declared value was one of the top 2 or 3 things that just they didn't understand. And wait, you're supposed to tell me what the card's worth, not me, and declared value, like really what it is, if we lose the card or it gets damaged, that's what you're covered up. That's what we tell our insurance company that, that's the coverage. That's truly what it is. So, it just simplified things by not having to type it. It also makes you go quicker. You don't have to type it in. So you can, you can with fewer clicks, you can rip through a submission faster. A lot of our dealers have appreciated it because it's they a lot of them drop off anyway. The shipping doesn't matter.
Mm,
So not having to type in one more field on a 500 card order actually makes a big difference. So
yeah. And I know you've done tons of different interviews over the years, like the whole declare value upcharge thing. So can you basically break down the reason why a base Luca is $20 the grade and an 86 Fleer is, let's just call it $1,000 the grade or whatever? Like where, like, part of the answer is, I guess, it's the insurance versus the PSA guarantee. Like, where does that extra fee, like, where is that going for the customer?
yeah, I mean, look, businesses, you have a choice. You can price based on your cost, or you can price based on the value you create. And most businesses are the latter. Um, PSA is no different. I would argue that Luca card is worth more thanks to PSA more than anything. Like we're putting our name behind it. There's a grade guarantee that we don't collect insurance premiums on after you get the card back. That we probably spent 180 grand buying cards back. I've approved the buybacks. Like we've spent well over $10 million since I got here buying cards back that were fake, that we graded historically. And our only chance at collecting an insurance premium on that's the initial grading fee. But I would argue the biggest reason is the value pricing. I mean, if you have just to put a extreme example on it, if you have a raw Honus Wagner card, is that card worth more raw or in a PSA 2 holder? And the answer is the latter. So, I feel it's very, transparent and deserved and not just us, for any company that creates value for an asset to, be compensated for that value. And again, not the least of which is we're guaranteeing and we have to buy it back at then market value at any point in the future. So I mean, that's a pretty big, um, liability that we're carrying. So that's why.
Yeah, and that we both know that the PSA guarantee does, I think, carry a lot of weight, and is probably a big factor on why, especially maybe not necessarily on the lower end, but on the higher end, kind of justify those prices if like, okay, I have this little insurance policy behind me if something is amiss with this card.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge deal. I mean, like I said, I'm shaking my head because I can, it just kills me every time I see one of these cards. And even more so that they were graded since I've been here, because we've put so much effort into building content and process and specialization to catch these things. And it happens, slips through. It's a lot less frequent than it used to be, but like, these 90s basketball cards, man, like I know this stuff well. Like, you grade the damn thing is 99% real. In fact, the card is real. It just has a fake serial number, you know, like it's so tricky. And then it's like $250,000. So,
Yeah.
and like I look back and like, back in the day when we weren't as good at pricing, like, we bought a card back the other day for 150 grand. And I look back, we graded it in 2012 and we got $12 to grade it. So like I mean, that's the reason right there. Like we should have, like that's
Yeah.
not a good business. If you're pricing, yourself at cost and then you're holding yourself accountable, indefinitely at a floating market value. But again, guarantee or not, the main point is that, value creation is a big, look at auction houses. They charge, 20% buyer's premium. How's that any different?
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned about, like, catching more and more fake stuff coming
mhm.
through and things like that. Is that just like I have to imagine that is just like a constant battle of
Oh
you
yeah.
guys catch something and then the bad guys figure out some new thing and maybe slip a couple through and then you guys catch on to that. Like, I have to imagine the amount of time and energy that is spent on that is insane.
It's huge. It's the room next to me, brand protection. Yeah, I mean, we have an evidence room containing thousands of counterfeit fakes that in the grading. I'm in the grading room. It's right outside here. That is a resource library that's pretty unparalleled. We have all of it's digitized. As soon as a certain spec gets pulled up and a grading system or the research team, it's like, hey, here's 25 examples of a real one. Here's 5 examples of a fake one. Here's what the 0 should look like in the serial number. Here's what a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 looks like. Like all the different things. And we have a whole team that sits there writing this content that gets surfaced at the point of grading or research. None of that existed. Pre 2021, we weren't even taking pictures of cards before or after grading. We take a front and back image of every card raw and graded now. So we're taking 180,000 images every day. It's a lot of images. Actually, it's more now because including the US and coins, it's like 240,000. So, and all that feeds into our giant database. And so we have software going at it. We have humans going at it. We've got, experts externally, like for vintage, especially that, we have to stay ahead. Like we've found some really scary things, that we're now working more closely with the manufacturers, to alert them. And they're actually now helping us too. It's bi-directional. So we're, like when, what's a good example? Like when this was public, but like, an employee walked out with a sheet of 1 of 1s not so long ago, a year or two ago. We alerted our entire grading team. Not just like, hey, you don't just stand up. It's like in the software, every grader has a screen in front of them. If that spec pops up, doesn't matter the player, it's triple checked, and sure enough, a fake came through. We were on the phone with the manufacturer, and an hour later, they were on a flight to come pick up the copy and inspect it and trace, like we work with law enforcement every day. I mean, that's the business we're in. We're the rating agency in the middle, choosing right or wrong. It's what we're paid to do. I mean, that's it's part of it. So
Yeah. It seems like, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask, the current battleground seems to be a lot around the card cleaning stuff. Like that's, you can make it YouTube video every day about card cleaning if you wanted to. How, you guys came out with a pretty firm stance of, no, like no spray, no wax, in your updated terms and conditions recently. How is that? Because I know, like, everyone knows it's difficult to detect. Like, how hard of a battle is that to fight when, there's not necessarily like a B yes no type thing of if something happened to a card or not?
it's hard. It's a very different problem than counterfeit detection. Alteration detection is a totally different thing. If you wipe a surface down with a microfiber to remove fingerprints, no big deal. Even if you use distilled water to, slight, on a little towelette, and we do this to remove fingerprints, just speck of dust, that's not a big deal. That's nothing. But if you use chemicals or wax or things like that, we're getting better at detecting it. I mean, cards come in here, believe it or not, soaking wet. Where like in the card saver, you can see condensation and the card literally to the touch is wet. And we do have a lot of before and after photos of cards, especially serial numbered cards, fingerprinting of cards. We've killed a number of cards that clearly have had creases removed. That we're starting to pick up on more and more. Our best form of action is typically punishment. Unfortunately, we're having to ban customers, that we catch doing this on a regular basis. Trimming's a huge one. It's a little easier for us to detect because we're pretty quantitative around sizing of cards through imaging and before and after, but also just edge detection and natural edge detection. But that's still a big problem, especially for vintage. But yeah, I mean, it's part of our job. Counterfeit detection, it's a binary yes or no. Typically, grading, alteration detection is a part of grading. It's arguably the hardest thing to do other than counterfeit detection. So
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine, like I said, I just can't imagine the amount of time and energy that goes into all that. Has that been where you've mentioned AI a few times? Is that where stuff like that becomes like a big help
yeah,
on like the tech side of it for kind of helping not necessarily catch, but document flag, kind of the whole kit and caboodle.
yeah, and we're working on cool stuff. I can't get into all of it, but I mean, like in coins, for example, we have machines that detect certain chemicals that have been applied to a coin. You can imagine the same thing with cards. There's not a lot you can do with imaging. You can do that with sizing for trimming, but for chemical use, unless you have a before or after, it's hard with imaging. But physical detection is the way to, we've got a lot of investment in that world. Um, yeah, so I mean, we have like a whole lab here that's basically, trying different things to stay ahead. And it's not limited to just cleaning. Like I'll give you, one of the big things we've been battling, it's public, is, as these slabs become valuable, people try and fake the slabs too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got a whole process and team here in the brand protection team that we had another one today. Johnny Bench fake slab that, the card's real, it's a look-alike. It was a 10, but the card's not a 10, it's a 5, but the eye appeal looks great. So you can be fooled. The slab was fake, the label was fake. And there's so many different variations of this, and the FBI has been really helpful in helping us take down a couple of these syndicates. It's not a huge issue, in quantity, but dollar wise, they target the really big, the 86 Fleer Jordan, PSA 10s, and stuff like that. So, we have to, it's on us to build. So we're building a lot of cool stuff in our holders around, covert security features that, you can tell, um, covert and overt features that make it almost impossible to counterfeit, which will lead to people needing to reholder their cards more, which I think is a good thing, because then you get imaging, on the site, cert verification. Educated buyers have more optionality, at more things at their disposal to verify the card they're buying is real, even though it's graded. So that's another frontier we're on. So
Yeah, and you guys just had an updated holder, like a 2-3 months ago, I think. I
yeah,
know initially launched, there were some issues, and then you guys went
yeah,
back to the drawing board and
yeah.
relaunched.
The holder was great and the cards were fine. It's just we had this little micro cracking that made it look like the card was scratched, but it was on the plastic. But we fixed that, the flow lines. But yeah, it's the holder. I mean, honestly, we probably make an improvement on the holder every month. Um, that some we talk about, some we don't. Most we don't talk about, things that we're just trying. Um, that different sizes. I mean, we have like, 50 to 70 different dimensions of cards and thicknesses and XYZ, all different, sizing and thicknesses, but also condition sensitive. We have to do lamination. We've got all these different ways to hold our cards, tickets, packs, etc. And so it's not as simple as just like, I mean, the biggest case we use is the Pokemon case. That's the most that we produce. So we focus on like the low hanging fruit, but, yeah, it's not as simple as like one holder. It ends up being 50 or 60 or 70 holders. Yeah.
Have you guys rolled out the new? I remember, I think Ryan showed it on your guys' Instagram live that you did about a month or so ago. The die cut holders, have those hit the market yet,
No,
or is that
not
still?
live, not in the wild yet. It's so
Those
cool
look
though.
really cool when he showed
Yeah,
them off on the IG thing.
it's so cool. I don't have one in my office here, I don't think, but no, but yeah, it's so cool. I have a lot of die cut cards, and it really bothers me when they shift around. And they're safe in the current holder. They just the aesthetics of the card, shifting and stuff, is poor at best. So that's a good example of we're trying to do star bags, the team bags, for packs. What else are we working on? We got a new tall boy holder we're working on. Um, comic holder, magazines.
Yeah,
Got a lot of
that's
stuff.
the I know the comic holder has been a on that side of the fence, has been a not so much the holder a little bit, but the label too, but both, been kind of a hot button issue on that side of things. How, obviously you guys aren't in that market yet, like officially you're not slabbing anything, but how has that kind of process been of kind of throwing that out to the wind, getting a bunch of feedback, and then kind of going back to the workshop? I know you guys had it on the floor at New York City Comic Con, but I don't think you've had any updates since, after kind of taking a bunch of feedback.
Yeah, we're in the lab with it. I mean, we've got some various prototypes. We actually someone tweeted, I don't remember who it was. Someone tweeted at us like, "Hey, this is what your label should look like." And we looked at it, we're like, "Shit, that's better. That's better than what we had." So we're definitely like kind of back to the drawing board a little bit on the label. We're very open to, at the end of the day, we work for the collectors, right? So it's in our name. So we're very open to feedback. It's a new frontier for us. We're very excited about it. We see a lot of the like less comics, but we see a lot of magazines, autographs come in, like our own PSA magazines, which I have all over this place. So yeah, we're very excited. It's still in the lab, but I mean, we're definitely launching in probably Q2 of next year. Definitely is probably too strong word, but we definitely have plans to launch in Q2. Something could always happen, but we're
Yeah.
we're on track. We've got plenty of holders in the office here containing books that we're, proud to have in our holder, and we have the grading team stood up. A lot of the holder actually is in a good place. The label and some of the product and tech work for online submitting and populations and population reports and stuff like that is what we're working on. So it's a big, and there's a lot goes into launching a new category, which we've done before. We launched Funko Pops. We bought WATA for video games. Like we knew, but it's we're not going to do it rushed. So
It's also got to be a lot different too, because like Funko Pops, you guys were kind of like there wasn't anyone else doing that.
Yeah.
Versus like
that doesn't really matter, right?
okay, I didn't know if it mattered, like from the idea that you were kind of coming in comics, you're coming in as the underdog. In Pops, there isn't really anybody else.
Yeah, but again, like you still have to do all the same things. So you gotta.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
that does have to be I can only imagine what that spin up process must be like to be like, okay, let's grade this now, like, and just starting from ground zero.
Yeah, we don't. There's a lot of things like we get asked to do toys and Hot Wheels and Lego sets and all sorts of things, but the comics, we have a lot of TCG is our biggest category at I know TCG and comics aren't the same thing, but a lot of look behind you, like a lot of people have collect comics, collect cards, and it's a natural extension for, and it's not just comics. We're doing magazines and all sorts of stuff. It's just a natural extension for PSA, and it was right up there with liquidity and that kind of stuff. Was one of the most frequently asked for things from our submitters. Hey, can you I hate good examples are PSA magazine. We have a lot of people who collect those. We have parallels and variations and autographs, and people like, hey, I want those in a PSA holder. It's a PSA magazine, for God's sake. So that really ramped up the interest in our side to do it as the PSA magazine became a bigger and bigger thing.
Yeah.
So
one of the interesting side things on comics is something that you've done on the card side now, which is what I was begging for forever, was graders notes. That is something that is instilled on the comic side of, that's just a thing. Like those exist.
Yeah, totally.
And it is myself, like someone that plays in both sides of the tracks on that. It always boggled my mind that card companies didn't do it. You had Beckett with subgrades, and some other companies kind of would give you like a general idea of why it graded the way that it did. But how has graders notes kind of, what kind of feedback have you guys seen on that internally and externally?
I would say it's been very positive on balance. We've adapted it a bit. I think the biggest point of confusion, I'm glad we've done it. I mean, it's definitely, I'll tell you, our customer service calls have definitely gone down. A lot of people would call like, why did my card get a 6? I think what most people don't realize is that the notes are not intended to be, and they're certainly not comprehensive. It's the major flaw. It's, you may see like centering left, right, but you're like, wait, the card's, 60-40 or 55-45, but why isn't it a 10? 55-45 should be a 10. That's because, there's, probably a print dot, or there's something, maybe one corner slightly soft. The grader's not sitting there writing a paragraph per card. There's almost always more than one thing going on with the card. They're instructed to write the thing that should be most obvious. And so we have some work to do to make that clear or make the grader notes more comprehensive. We're probably going to go after both, and try and beef them up. Our challenge is that slows the grading team down quite a bit, and we're struggling with grading capacity every day, and it's a balance. I think people, if they could choose, would have cheaper pricing and faster turnaround times and more comprehensive notes, if I'm being honest. So that's kind of why it is what it is right now.
Well, you guys also have a kind of gatekeep on higher end submissions at the moment.
Yeah, but we're going to roll it out to every card.
That was going to be my next question. Do we see it start to trickle down? So you beat me.
Yeah, it's gonna be an extra charge, not a lot, but it's going to be, because it does. It slows the graders down a lot, and it should. If you want transparency, great. But this isn't some AI system making it up. Like this is a human sitting there like a doctor's office writing a note on what they saw, which I think is the right way to do it. I'm a tech guy, but I believe that humans can do the best job of grading a card, and I'll probably always believe that. And so therefore they should be writing the notes. but we're doing really cool things. Like, for example, I'll give you just a snapshot. Like, we're going to have point and click where the card, like, if they say crease, we're going to have it where it actually, because we have images where it's going to literally point to where it is. And so the grader is going to have an ability to, place an X on the flaw issue. So you're not sitting there saying, well, I thought they said, bottom left back, and you're like looking for it, but on the image, it'll be highlighted for you, that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of other things we're working on, but that's one of the examples.
I would think on the front end too, like you had mentioned the customer service calls. I mean, one of the biggest things that I see, and I'm sure you guys see it too, you look at anything that mentions PSA, it's somewhere along the line in the comments is about like, oh, I sent in a 6 and then it came back a 9, or why did this card get a 6? I don't understand. To have the perception of inconsistency when you don't really know, because you get the card back, it says PSA 6 on it, but you're looking at it and you're like, this card
You
looks
think
fine.
it's good.
Maybe you even crack it out and you're like, I just don't see what they saw. But if there's something that they can look up on the cert that says
Yeah.
this is what I saw, it would eliminate, or not, it's not going to never eliminate, but it would at least
It
probably
lessens the,
cut back that tension of, what the hell did they give me a 6 for on this?
yeah. I mean, most of the time it's a surface thing. People admit, I mean, it's hard. I mean, our graders are very professional. They have professional equipment and, environment, and are trained. And most of the time it's, a subtle crease. It's a subtle scratch, a fingernail indentation. It's something that is not, I mean, centering's obvious. Corners tend to be obvious to the average submitter, but surface is really hard. Of the things, eye appeal, colors, pretty easy. Edges, a little harder, but generally, people can tell on their own. But when someone says that, they get an 89 upper deck Griffey back and it's a 6, they're like, this card's perfect. I've had it since a kid. And, I can pretty much guess what it's going to be. It's going to be some sort of surface flaw. And so that's why the like point and click on like, here's where the flaw is. That's one reason, like low hanging fruit. We'll knock off a lot of the issues or the questions, I should say, by having like here is, literally on the image overlaid to your exact card. Here's where the issue is. So
Now, one of the things that you guys did differently with graders notes, which I don't like, is you guys made the choice to keep them private. What was because in comics they're very public.
yeah,
I'll
we
be
made
curious to see how you guys kind of handle that on
that
the
was
comic side.
that was a technical. I mean, honestly, there wasn't a business decision about that. It was really just it's like one more thing our engineering team has to do, on the cert page. I mean, it's not to say they'll forever be private. I will tell you though, we had in our focus groups, a lot of people prefer them private.
Interesting.
Like if a card has a flaw, they don't want someone to see it on eBay and then look it up and be like, oh, I'm not bidding now. It's got to, even though the grade is right there, right there on the label, they viewed it as could only hurt the value of the card they just got graded. So that surprised me, but like that is something that came out of our research before we did it. So
that surprises me too, but it could just be because I'm used to the comic side where it's just kind of like the way, and then to have it this way be different is kind of like, wait, what? But I guess if you're not used to it, I guess I could kind of see that angle of it.
No, I'm kind of in your camp. Like I and I'm not going to be the one to decide this. This is going to be up to Ryan and our head of grading, Reza. But I'm kind of the mind of I type in the cert number. If the grader notes exist, it'd be really cool to see them as a potential bidder, not the original submitter. But again, that it's more of a technical thing than anything. But having said that, we did see in the focus groups that a lot of people actually viewed it as like a privacy thing where they're like, this is my private information. I paid for grading. I don't need the world to know why my card got what grade it got. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to touch on, because we've gone pretty long here, but I did want to hit on the SGC acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys picked up SGC. I forget when that was exactly, probably about 6 months ago, maybe, give or take. How was that? Just like a right place, right time? Was that we're in the market to add, another third-party grader to the arsenal, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I've talked about it before. I don't think with you, but the original, we started collaborating with them on counterfeit detection. So we saw some things, they saw some things in the grading room that were of interest that we started sharing information on. And so we started to develop a pretty great relationship on policing the hobby if that makes any sense. Like we had some. They actually, it started with them. They had a submitter who was submitting cards, and it seemed like those cards had come from PSA. Maybe they'd been cracked out, through through our image database, and they were super helpful. And so we started collaborating in that regard, sharing information that we're on what we're both seeing. And then we started getting really slammed on vintage. I think we get a lot of crap, deservedly, for being slower on turnaround times with vintage. And I collect vintage, like I feel it too. It's the hardest thing to grade in the grading room. Takes the most time. It's the most nuanced. And that's what SGC is best at, is pre-war especially, but vintage pre-79. And it really filled a gap for us. We want to have a talent advantage, and it starts with graders and experts. And we believe SGC, other than us, has the best grading talent when it comes to especially vintage cards, but also modern sports cards. And having them in the umbrella, if you will, allows us to sleep better at night, knowing that if we get an onslaught, another avalanche of cards, and it's already paid off, we have talent, at our fingertips that we can leverage to meet the customer needs. And so that's where it started and went to. And they've been great to work with. Pete and Dave Foreman are really good. I mean, we've left them completely alone. I think they would say the same thing. Like, they can continue to make their own decisions and operate. We did an analysis on customer overlap, and most people, I think it was like high 70%, low 80% of people don't submit to both companies. They only submit to one or the other. So there's not a lot of people who collect both, said differently. So therefore, we want them to kind of make their own calls, make their own pricing decisions, make their own, product decisions. And I think it's worked well. I mean, it's almost been a year now. They've continued to grow. We've even, they're in our Slack channels. If we see a fake, all that content I was referring to, they have access to, vice versa. So, it's kind of like a shared brain, if you will, as far as grading talent. So,
do we ever get to the point where some of the, would SGC cards be available to go directly to the PSA vault? Like, do we ever see? I mean,
yeah,
ever a long time, but is that like on a roadmap somewhere of like kind of integrate? Like, you guys, it feels like PSA has all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Like, does some of that stuff start to trickle down to them?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've talked to Pete about it. We have, again, it's product and tech, we've got so many things to do. It's what makes this business fun, but there's a never ending list. But yeah, having a send to the vault, in their online submission center is on the list. It's not high on the list. I think Pete would rather have a set registry, for example, than that. But which
mythical SGC set registry,
right? Totally. We don't have pop reports for Funko or set registry for banknotes, or there's so many things we need. It's just if you saw the list of things that we had, and like the people we have, and like where the line is cut off, and how many things are below it, it would freak you out. Be like, as a collector, you're like, wait, why can't we do all? That's the fun stuff. But anyway, SGC is no different in that regard. So they in fact, it's even more so. Like, their technical resources are a lot smaller. I mean, obviously it's a smaller business, but yeah, the vaulting is one, selling on eBay is another. But like I said, there's 30 or 40 things that probably are above that, if I'm Pete. So
yeah. Speaking of like PSA bells and whistles coming down, like a lot of this stuff's on the card side, like the direct to eBay, the vault, things like that. Do we, is that something that will eventually trickle down to the other categories? Like, will comic books be able to take advantage of direct to eBay at some point in time, or vaulting, or instant offers, and all the different things?
So you can technically send anything graded to our vault today.
Okay.
I have comic books and coins and Funkos and all sorts of all sorts of stuff in my vault account. As far as like automatically from the online submission center, the checkbox is only available for cards, but I've hacked it. I put my vault address as my shipping address, for all those other categories, and the vault happily accepts them, images them, stores them. But yeah, as far as having like that automated connection from the online submission center, all those other categories, including coins, will get lit up in time. But we got to get Ben Buy It Now out first and offer.
Yeah, you guys got a long list, but
yeah, but it'll happen. Tickets, packs. We get tickets. Funny enough, is probably the one we hear the most of all the things we do that aren't connected to the vault in an automated way is the one that we get asked about the most. And unopened packs. Tickets is growing extremely fast still here. And that's one you can send to the vault, but we just don't have any like automated connectivity with yet. So
I knew tickets were really high for a hot minute. Type 1 photos were really popular too. Is that still the case, or is that
I
kind of slowed down a
that's a
little
good
bit?
question. I actually don't. I haven't looked at the data on that. I would think so because I see them. PAX has slowed down. I do know that unopened packs mostly because the vintage packs, like the most, not most, but I would say, well, maybe a lot of those have already been discovered, and the bolus of old packs is shrinking. That's out there, the universe. A lot of them being opened, whatever, and TCG packs are popular, but they're not replacing the vintage as fast. But it's still growing, but just not. It's not as fast as it once was. Tickets is as fast as ever. I don't have any data on the photos.
I'm just curious.
The Funko Pops are growing really fast.
That's I've never been a Funko Pop guy. I could see, because I do go to a lot of Comic Cons. I could definitely see the angle for autograph authentication on those, because a billion of those things get signed
We see a lot of
at
those, but
Comic Cons.
we're seeing a lot of unsigned ones. It's pretty cool. I work
Interesting.
out of our Jersey City office most days and most weeks, and that's where we do them. And it seems like half the office is filled with Funko Pops all of a sudden. But yeah.
Um, One last question, and I'll let you sneak out of here. Thank you once again so much for the time. Is there anything that you see, whether it's online in comments and YouTube videos or whatever, I don't want to say like grind your gears, but you're just like, oh my god, guys, you're just getting this so wrong, or is there anything out there that you encounter like that you're just like, no, this is the way that it is, or this is the way that it works, or anything like that?
I don't this may come as a surprise, but like, I don't spend a ton of time on comments. You know, I love
For the
Instagram.
better.
Yeah. No, I love Instagram DMs. I mean, I respond to every single one, and I'm happy to engage with reasonable people. But most people in comments, in my experience, hide behind their username and try and mess with you. So I don't the Twitter stuff. I mean, I would say the well, it's a fair piece of feedback. Like the turnaround times, like the fact that our turnaround time clock doesn't start until we open the box. Like that's one I hear a lot, which is completely fair. It grinds. I get so mad about it every time I see it because it's true. We when we get crushed with specials, like the last day of the month, for example, we get a mini avalanche of boxes show up, and it does back up the receiving of those cards. It could be even a week or two, sometimes 3, before we actually open every box, and then our turnaround time starts. Then we got to fix that, and we're not great at anticipating when those mini avalanches occur, and we have overtime. We don't. It's a business with people. Like we can't just go hire a bunch of people off the street and say, hey, help us open boxes. There's a
Yeah.
lot of training, and we can't staff at peak levels at all times, right? So there's just a lot. That's one that I see pretty often, at least once a month or every month. An onslaught of that, and that it's completely fair. I just we've chipped away at it, but it's just not not where it needs to be. So
Awesome. Well, Nat, thanks for the time.
yeah,
This went a lot longer than I thought that it was going to, but it probably could have gone even longer. But I want to be respectful. So thanks again for coming on. Thanks for the information. Anything you want to tease or anything? We kind of talked about a
no,
lot
we covered a
already,
lot.
but so
I need to
all
go take
right.
a nap. All right. See.
Awesome. Thanks again, Nat.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.